I had never told my son that I earned $40,000 a month. In his eyes, I was just an ordinary mother, leaving home early, coming back late, cooking simple meals, and never complaining. He never knew that for 20 years, I was a senior executive responsible for thousands of employees and multi-million-dollar contracts, but I never told him. Not because I was afraid, but because I believed simplicity is dignity, not poverty. Until that night. Marcus, my son, invited me to dinner with his wife's family. "They want to meet you," he said, a trace of tension in his voice. I agreed, though something inside me felt uneasy. And I was right. That night, I decided to play poor. Wearing an old gray dress, carrying a faded canvas bag, no jewelry. I wanted to see how they would treat someone they thought had nothing. The dinner was at a luxurious restaurant, golden light reflecting off polished tables and confident faces that smelled of wealth. The moment I walked in, I saw it. That cold, measuring look of people who weigh others by the size of their wallet. I smiled. They thought I was a pitiful woman, but they were about to learn a lesson they'd never forget. When Marcus was little, he once held my hand and said, "Mom, you're the strongest person in the world." I smiled back, but my heart ached. He didn't know that I was strong because I had no choice. I raised him alone, working from dawn till midnight, climbing through a world ruled by men in suits who spoke of power as if it were air. I learned to stay calm when dismissed, to smile when underestimated, and to stay silent. Because silence is the armor of those who know their worth. I never told Marcus about the late-night meetings, the million-dollar deals, or the battles I fought to protect my decisions. I didn't want him to love me for my title or income. I wanted him to love me as his mother. But as he grew up, he began to drift away. He married Simone, a woman raised in luxury and etiquette. I didn't dislike her. She was simply a product of a family that believed status defines worth. What I didn't expect was that my own son would start believing the same. I realized it the day he said, "Mom, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable with Simone's family. They're just different from you." I understood. Different meant better. That night, sitting alone in my small apartment, I stared out the window at the city lights and wondered, has my son forgotten the hands that built the ground he stands on? I made myself a cup of tea and decided it was time to remind them who I really was. Not to boast, but to show them that dignity has nothing to do with money. Saturday evening, I stood before the mirror. The gray dress. A few silver strands in my hair. Eyes still sharp. I smiled at my reflection. "All right," I whispered. "If they want to test me, I'll let them." I called a taxi and left my apartment. The city lights danced on the car windows, dazzling yet cold. I thought of Marcus, of Simone, and of what was about to unfold. After tonight, none of us would ever be the same again. At the restaurant, Marcus stood waiting in a crisp suit. His eyes flickered awkwardly when he saw me, the worn dress, the old shoes. "I'm here," I said softly. He nodded with a stiff smile. At the table by the window sat Simone and her parents, Veronica and Franklin, polished, elegant, with that same assessing gaze. "Mrs. Hilera," Veronica said, pearls glinting under the light. "I'm Veronica, and this is my husband Franklin." "Pleasure to meet you both," I replied gently, but not one of them smiled sincerely. Veronica glanced at the menu. "You might want to order something simple," she said sweetly. "The prices here are a little high." Her tone was smooth but laced with condescension. "That's all right," I replied calmly. "I don't eat much." All dinner long, she talked about money. Their $30,000 trip to Europe, a $6,000 anniversary watch. Simone giggled proudly. Marcus stayed quiet. I ate silently, listening, observing. When dessert arrived, Veronica leaned in, her voice dripping with polite cruelty. "So, Mrs. Hilera, Marcus mentioned you live alone. That must be difficult?" "I manage fine," I answered. Franklin added, "That's impressive. Still, at your age you should rest more. If you ever need help, we could support you." "Support me?" I raised an eyebrow. Veronica smiled faintly. "Yes, we could send you a few $100s a month, so Marcus and Simone don't have to worry too much." "Jod ep." The words landed like a quiet slap. Marcus looked down. Simone froze. I set my glass down gently. "So," I said, "you'd like to pay me to disappear from my son's life?" Veronica blinked, still smiling. "Oh no, you misunderstand. I only meant you'd live more comfortably that way. I'm comfortable enough, I said evenly. It's just that I don't measure comfort in money. The air went still. Simone's cheeks burned red. Franklin cleared his throat. I looked around at their crystal glasses and counterfeit smiles. Then I leaned in slightly. Mrs. Veronica, I said, my voice calm but steady. I came tonight to see how my son is treated when his mother is poor. Now I know. Marcus opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. You're right. We come from different worlds. But what you forget is this. Money can't buy respect. Veronica froze. Franklin stared at his plate. I smiled faintly. Thank you for the dinner, and for showing me the truth. I stood, my steps steady, fire burning quietly in my chest. They thought they'd humiliated me. But they had no idea the real reckoning was just beginning. As I turned to leave, Marcus grabbed my hand. Mom, please don't go, he whispered. Veronica frowned. Marcus, what are you doing? We're having a serious discussion. No, Marcus said softly, his voice breaking. You're insulting my mother. The table went silent. The waiter stepped back nervously. I sat down again, composed. You said you wanted to help me, I said, my tone cutting through the stillness. By giving me a few $100s a month, so I wouldn't burden your perfect life? Veronica's smile stiffened. It was just a gesture of goodwill, Mrs. Alara, nothing more. Chat GPT den. I nodded slightly, a faint smile on my lips. I see. But tell me, this help you mentioned, how much is it exactly? About $700 a month, Veronica replied. Ah, $700, I repeated, my voice cold. $700 for me to disappear from my son's life. And you, Veronica, tell me, have you ever helped your daughter? She stiffened. Of course. We gave Simone $40,000 for their house deposit and $15,000 for their honeymoon because we're responsible parents. I see, I said calmly. 100% responsibility in money, 0% in respect. Simone lowered her head. Marcus clenched his fists. Then, I slowly opened my old wallet and pulled out a sleek black card, placing it gently on the table. This is my company card, I said steadily. There's no spending limit. I'm a regional director for a multinational corporation, overseeing 5 countries. My income isn't $700 a month, it's $40,000. Paul. The room fell dead silent. Marcus froze. Simone's eyes widened. Veronica sat upright, her face pale, while Franklin nervously adjusted his tie. I continued. For 20 years, I worked tirelessly. I built everything from nothing. I was once dismissed, called just a low-level employee, but I never needed pity, only respect. Veronica's voice trembled. You're serious? I looked her straight in the eye. I have no reason to lie. I simply wanted to see how you'd treat someone you thought was poor. Congratulations, you've performed flawlessly. Simone burst into tears. Marcus bowed his head, tears falling silently. Then, I placed another card, a platinum one, beside the first. This one's my personal card. Tonight's dinner is on me, including that $200 bottle of wine you were so proud of, Mrs. Veronica. Her face flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Don't worry. Consider it a thank you gift. Thanks to this dinner, I finally see that money can buy fine wine but never character. The entire restaurant went silent. A few guests turned to look. Franklin mumbled something under his breath. I stood up, my voice steady yet sharp as steel. Truly wealthy people don't prove it with jewelry or words. They prove it through how they treat others. Then I turned to my son. Marcus, do you see? Sometimes the most valuable lessons are served at your own dinner table. Hi. I walked away, each step slow and calm, leaving behind 3 pale faces and a silence that stretched into eternity. Outside, the night air was cold but freeing. My heart felt lighter than it had in years. Behind me, I heard hurried footsteps. Mom, wait, Marcus called out, voice breaking. I turned. He was running toward me, eyes red and wet. Mom, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I didn't realize they'd treat you that way. I sighed softly, looking at the son I had given my life to raise. Marcus, I said gently, you're not guilty for not knowing, you're guilty for staying silent. He lowered his head. I was afraid they'd be upset, that Simone would be embarrassed. And because of that fear, I interrupted, you let them humiliate your mother right in front of you. A tear slid down his cheek. I shook my head. But don't cry. Tonight you learned a lesson that many never learn in a lifetime. He whispered, Mom, why didn't you ever tell me you were an executive, that you were wealthy? I smiled faintly, the streetlight glinting in my eyes. Because I didn't want you to grow up believing a person's worth comes from their wallet. I wanted you to stand on your own, not on what I have. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered, But they hurt you. I nodded. Yes. But that's not what hurts most. What hurts is that you didn't defend what was right. Idol. The city hummed softly around us. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Son, never let anyone, not even the one you love, make you ashamed of where you come from or who raised you. If you forget your roots, you'll lose yourself. Marcus pulled me into a tight hug. I promise, Mom, I'll never let that happen again. I brushed his hair gently and smiled. Good, now go home. Simone needs you. And tell her if she truly wants to know who I am, she can come find me. Not in a fancy restaurant, but in my small apartment. He nodded, his voice breaking. I'll tell her. And Mom, I'm proud of you. More than ever. I smiled softly. I don't need your pride, son. I just need your understanding. A taxi pulled up. I opened the door, glancing back at him one last time. Marcus, I said, my voice calm but warm, money can buy many things but never respect. Remember that. He nodded through tears, watching as I disappeared into the night. Through the window, I could still see him small, fragile, but finally growing, not in age, but in heart and courage. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. Simone stood there, no pearls, no designer dress. Just a young woman in a simple sweater, her hair tied back, eyes swollen from crying. May I come in, Mom? She whispered. I stepped aside. Come in, Simone. Daring? She sat on the couch, looking around my modest home, the old table, the chipped teapot, the framed photo of Marcus as a boy. Her eyes softened. I've never seen you like this before, she said quietly. I only saw you through my parents' words, and I was wrong. I poured tea and set a cup in front of her. Sometimes people don't see with their eyes, they see through their prejudice. Simone nodded, tears falling freely. That night, I knew they were wrong. I wanted to stop them, but I was afraid. I've spent my whole life letting them decide everything. I'm ashamed, Mom. I gently touched her hand. We've all been afraid, Simone. What matters is whether you choose to change afterward. Her eyes lifted, glowing with new strength. I want to learn from you. I want to live differently, not for money or appearances, but for who I really am. I smiled, a quiet, knowing smile of a woman who had survived every storm. That's enough, my daughter. Forgiveness doesn't need words, it just needs understanding. Simone began to cry again, hugging me tightly. Thank you, Mom, for teaching me how to be a person, not just a wife. I held her close, glancing toward the window. Morning sunlight streamed through, bathing us in warmth. 2 women, one older, one younger, finding peace after the storm. The next morning, as I was making coffee, I heard a knock on the door. Marcus and Simone stood there, hand in hand, faces tired but gentle. Mom, we want to have breakfast with you. Such simple words, yet they melted my heart. I welcomed them in, brewed tea, and toasted bread, no fancy dishes, just laughter and clinking cups filling the small kitchen. Then Simone looked at me sincerely. Mom, I talked to my parents. They're angry, but I'm not afraid anymore. I just want to live honestly, like you. My eyes stung as I smiled. You've truly grown, Simone. Marcus squeezed her hand and turned to me. Mom, I promise that I'll never let anyone hurt you again. I shook my head gently. You don't need to protect me. Just live kindly and truthfully. That's the best protection there is. The morning light poured in, glinting off the steaming teacups. The 3 of us sat together. No luxury, no pretense, only love and understanding. And in that quiet moment, I realized something. Money can buy comfort, but never peace. It can buy gifts, but never respect. And it can buy a house, but never a home. That was the greatest treasure of my life. Thank you for listening to today's family drama story. If this story touched something in your heart about a mother's love, dignity, or the true value of a person, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and whether you've ever lived a story like Alara's. And don't forget to subscribe for more family drama stories, where every tale reminds us that kindness and love are always worth more than gold?